the same time, one of our horses was being used at BSU. And consequently, it's during football season, and so we could not take that horse with us, so we were short a horse. So he, in his campaigning the year before to become governor, got offered this mule, and was supposedly completely trained, been packed in and out, all of these things. So anyway, we used the mule and one of my horses. Well, that morning he had killed an elk, and we had gone up and field dressed it. And then we were going to load it onto horses and haul it back to camp. Well, I said, well, before we do that, we've got to tighten the cinch on that mule. It was on steep terrain, so I was having to actually lift up the pannier, stick my head under it, and then tighten the cinch. And Ruthie, the mule, starts dancing around a little bit, and so he comes over and says, I'll hold her and help you. Well, he walked up right in front of her with his bloody hands and put it on her muzzle. Well, she just reared back on her back legs, reached out with her front foot, and struck him right in the face. And from that moment, I do not remember how it happened, but apparently I fell underneath her hooves as she came down, and she hit me in the head, and I had a concussion. Now, all of these other things are either stories that Cecil made up or are true, one or the other. I'm sure he embellished them, but he did, I guess he says my head was bleeding, pulsating blood, and he took his shirt off and fastened a tourniquet around my head, and then made the decision we're going to walk out. So we walked back to camp. He took the radio, called the state patrol to let them know we were coming out. So a couple hours later, we come out to the road, and we were met then with people to look after us. He was able to get on the phone and call the hospital or the doctors and talk to them. They said, well, you've got to get the doctor out of here. He's got a head injury. So helicopters called in, and I went out on the helicopter. Fortunately for him, since he was the governor, he was able to get the National Guard to come up with a helicopter and haul him, so he didn't have to drive into town, which I constantly, years later, I said, I paid $2,500 for my flight, and you got in there for free. But to tell what kind of a guy he was, he went to one hospital, I went to the other because of head injuries. And he would not allow them to put him to sleep until he knew that I was okay. And I was at the one hospital, and I don't know if you want to know about it, but anyway, I woke up having an MRI taken of me. I'm in this big tube. And I look down this tube, and I see the light, and I said to myself as calmly as you please, you're right. When you die, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And the nurse says, just lay back, you are fine, you are fine. So anyway, after I came out, and must have been 10, 11 o'clock at night before that, but my wife talked to him on the phone and said I was okay, you know, not too crazy. And then he would allow him to go ahead and put him to sleep to get his face sewed up and that sort of thing. But that was the kind of caring person he was.
You know what I hear? The moral of that story is it's the fault of Boise State University and the Democrats who gave him that mule.
No, it's not Democrats. It was Republicans that gave him that mule.
It was the Republicans?
You is no kidding. It was the Republicans that gave him mule.
Sabotage.
It absolutely was.
That's the moral of that story.
You know, the press would always say right around Christmas time, Butch, Cecil, what are you going to get Butch for Christmas? Said a new set of training wheels. You know, the training wheels you used to put on your little kids' bikes. They get around. And he's getting better, but he still needs training wheels. And I still need training wheels. And sometimes I need to go ask Phil, or I need to ask somebody else. You know, I haven't had to deal with this. What should I do? What's the right thing to do? And so then they'd ask me, they'd say, especially after the elk hunting accident, they'd say, Butch, what are you going to get Cease for Christmas? And I said, a stronger mule. Because here's what he did. Or after he healed up, and Dean Sorensen, you know, was the one that fixed his nose. His nose was laying over to the side. Dean Sorensen fixed him up. He said he would go around to the chambers of commerce in every speech that he made, and he'd say, yeah, it was a terrible accident, and I've healed up and everything, and Sorensen fixed my nose. And he said, but I understood Otter was running right down to the dress store to get a new tux. As soon as he heard the helicopter had come back in to pick us up.